Continuing from last time, a bank's network ends up robbed of its deposit data by Prisman and Goro, who now happen to have bags under his eyes.
第一容疑者として警察署まで一緒に来てもらいたい。
嫌だと言ったら。
Man, he almost looks like a Go Nagai and Ken Ishikawa protagonist in this shot. All he's missing is the sideburns. And then, the dimensional area generators manifest.
俺の力を見せてやる。ダークシンクロチップ、スロットイン!
Yeah. I mean, it's obvious this was going to happen sooner or later. Regal had to do something with all the Synchro Chips he stole. It makes sense researching how they and Dark Chips would interact would be an eventual result of such. And Goro Misaki is his first test of the fusion of the two technologies. Knowing that Goro was a previous subject that could get a Synchro Chip to work, even if his sync rate was too low for it to stay stable, and profiled him to be envious of the two that were capable of cross-fusion, it's an easy way in to first swaying him into proximity, and then using him as a lab rat. Hell, it wouldn't surprise me if this were also why he briefly infiltrated their group to get first-hand data on the process, and wanted to snag Blues or Rockman with a previous Dark Soul incident for further data mining on how the process affects Navis and their operators, to successfully corrupt the bond both ways, and allow a Dark Chip to corrupt not just the Navi, but also its operator. As I've said about Regal, the man does not operate a one-dimensional plan. There are always multiple reasons behind why he's performing an action, and they all lead into them being for his own ultimate personal gain. And as frustrating as the filler episodes can get in this show with the bad writers among the staff, note that not once has Regal's character been impugned. No, the show waits until after his first massive defeat for him to go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, so it comes more off as a sanity break moment, much like the meme lord Shindan Kurotoshin from Rockman.exe, who I swear was partly based on Regal due to exe as a series taking rather heavy inspiration from the Rockman anime. Anyways, Goro's crime spree immediately grabs everyone's attention, but while cross-fused, he's immune to police-issued bullets. Yes, he is shot at, so gets away. This all gets back to the Net Police, who are all baffled by this, as before now, he's had a perfect record. So, something had to have happened in the last 2 days to cause such a change. And they figure, correctly, that it has to do with Dark Chips. But with the test on Goro using it complete, Yuriko has more jobs for him to fulfill, Neto being in the area of his next attack, and has to rescue the endangered bystanders, and even police that are in way over their heads.
Cross out! クロスフュージョンを手に入れた俺は無敵だ誰も俺を止められない
Yeah, this is why Regal needed a lab rat before using these on himself. Much like with Navi's, the stress of both the Dark Chip and the Synchro Chip on his body, especially because of his low synchro rate, have catastrophically damaging effects on Goro's body as they overstress it to ridiculous levels. Especially as neither have been calibrated for his proper use like Neto and Enzan's normal chips were. However, Enzan, who saw the dimensional area form and fall, happens across him an investigation of what happens, and gets Goro to a hospital, entirely separate from his PT or his corrupted chips. At this point he is restrained, but sans regular use, it seems like he's coming back to himself. The series once again treating the use of the Dark Chips as a really bad drug trip for a human in regards to this. He's interrogated about what happened, at least as much as he can remember, and explains how they used his dream to fuse with his Navi against him so everyone's on the same page. As this is so dangerous, they're not going to charge him criminally, but Goro's likely going to face some form of punishment for this. However, Yuriko finds where they've hidden him, and Prisman is sent to get back their pawn. Even using the medical equipment to transmit into Goro's body, the same stimuli used at the Dark Synchro Chip does to turn him evil again. And worse, after he escaped the hospital, Yuri and Mari's resemblance put the two in crossing paths of the other when Goro mistakes her for her sister, causing Mariko to once again see her and consider the possibility that her sister may be alive. However, with Dark Synchro Chip back in hand and its dimensional area going up, Goro is allowed to rampage as his worst self, requiring Neto come in to stop him. But because Neto's fighting another living person, he hesitates. Rampaging viruses, navis, and Darkloids is one thing. Most can be restored from backup in the worst case if there's no other way to get them to stop. Human lives, though? Your playing without continues. Thus, there's a greater threat that in trying to stop them, that Neto could unintentionally maim or kill a man who he knows is normally a good person. And having that awareness of self is a good thing. Oh, I've bashed characters for being wishy-washy in similar circumstances, but the big difference between, say, the incompetent Shinji Kido in Ryuki and Neto here is, 1, Neto's a kid, 2, Goro's only dangerously superpowered as long as the dimensional area is up, and yet Neto still fights to stop his rampage permanently, and 3, Neto actually makes use of a strategy that will disable his enemy without having to kill them, which will take him off the board, as opposed to Shinji where none of those applied, and that characters' refusal to make the choices that would save people's lives actually end up costing more people's lives as a consequence, making him a bigger villain than the individual who put the entire plot of his series in motion. Since if the villain had had his way and Shinji not forced the conflict the show was about to drag out as it did, far fewer people would have died, since the total kill count the villain originally planned to have happen if everything went as it was supposed to was just 12, and not the thousands if not millions it ended up being in Ryuki. When the actions or inaction of a virtuous protagonist makes them end up being responsible for more deaths than your villain, you kind of have a hard time selling them as being a hero. Regardless, to prevent his son from ending up a murder by accident, Yurichiro reveals the one weakness of the Synchro suits. The Navi emblem is where the core processor of the PET is stored. Strike it hard enough and the damage will translate to breaking the PET and shutting cross-fusion down permanently. On one hand, this feels like a bit of a cop-out. On the other, well, it makes sense to put the most vulnerable part of the system in a place like that. For if the human is going to be struck there, they die anyways. The most common defensive move that a fighter can make is to cross their arms over their chest for a reason after all. The whole complaint tied to that is it just, well, the Navi emblems are kind of a big target to begin with. So making them the absolute weak points, it's so obvious it reaches the point of no one really thinking of it as that. With the target in mind, Neto goes on the attack, only to be attacked from behind by Blues, leading him being hit hard by the Prism Barrage. Anson arrives and manages to distract Blues so Neto can finish the fight, but due to Goro's longer reach, he manages to hit Neto's chest emblem as well. Meaning while Goro's been saved, they are now out of operators and navis that can perform cross-fusion. The wrap-up. We have come to the dark side, for Goro Misaki and Prisman being forcibly infected by and then addicted to dark chips. We have drugs, not even once, for the same reason. We have Brawl for it all, for the fight to save Goro's soul from the dark aura infecting him. And we have still a better protagonist than Shinji Kido, for the show giving me an opportunity to once again play compare-contrast with the as-of-now third-worst Kamen Rider protagonist ever. It's actually amazing and baffling I actually had to bump him down 2 rankings since I reviewed his show way back in 2015, but it was only in 2016 and 2018 that worse ones than him were created. He spent over 15 years being the gold standard for awful protagonists for a reason, and an example that everyone in the Japanese media industry used as what to avoid. To the point characters like him became the actual villains of a lot of stories after his. People may talk about how influential that series is, but not a lot have recognized that it was influential for all the wrong reasons, and everyone else did their best to call out or deliberately avoid doing everything that was wrong with it. Once more, this was a big, dramatic episode from Araki that ends the second arc of the series with one big dramatic loss that shifts the balance of the entire status quo for the series. One of the many shakeups this arc of the series has done to keep things interesting while still slowly whittling away at the forces of the Darkloids, all while bringing Nebula into the light. But there's still a lot to do and see happen in the final 17 episodes of the season before it can come to its big finale. And we'll be starting to show how all that goes down soon enough.